Boom, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. Well, I wish I could come to you under happier circumstances. This is, of course, the post-game show for the Iowa Hawkeyes versus Tennessee Volunteers. Volunteers? Vols, Tennessee Vols. Let's just call them Vols. Post-game show, Citrus Bowl, little Citrus Bowl action. And of course, this is mainly coming from the perspective of an Iowa Hawkeye fan and from the Iowa Hawkeye side of things. Now, overall, this game went. I don't even know where to start. Okay, let me start here. I am mad at myself for not being more honest with myself. I have known, and I've been preaching to you Iowa fans for several weeks now, that Iowa is who Iowa is. And what that entails is a team that when they play against average to above average teams that will not beat themselves, which is what the Iowa Hawkeyes bank on. The Iowa Hawkeyes bank on you making mistakes, giving them the ball in solid territory so Iowa doesn't have to march down the field and string together several first downs in a row en route to a touchdown or a field goal. Iowa also banks on some special team success in all phases, really, of special teams: punt return, kick return, punting, kicking. But when you come across a team, and I think that the jig is up. I think the game plan and I've been saying for a long time, guys, like, I don't understand why teams don't realize this. Now, it's easier said than done. But when Iowa comes up against a team that matches up with them talent-wise and is, at the very least, as disciplined as them, if not more, Iowa gets absolutely crushed because of how inept the offense is. And what ends up happening is the defense is just unable to continuously bail out the Iowa Hawkeyes offense, and they shudder a little bit. They start becoming human again because, you can only, think about a normal boxing match. You can only be hit. There's a reason why the Rocky movie is a movie and it's fiction, because you cannot get hit that many times without it permanently affecting you. And Iowa's defense eventually wears down. So I'm upset with myself. I made a comment about it on my YouTube channel, the game preview that I did. I should have known better. I should have known that Iowa's offense was going to yet again not do a gosh darn thing, and that Tennessee was going to play smart, play disciplined, and would eventually wear down the Iowa Hawkeye defense. This game was an embarrassment. I feel terrible for the Iowa Hawkeye fans that traveled all the way to the Citrus Bowl to watch this shellacking from Tennessee. And I guarantee, I already know there's going to be Iowa fans that say, well, but Tennessee's just really good. They're a really good football team. Listen, guys, they're not a bad football team. I would say Tennessee is an above average football team, and they come from the SEC. Okay. But Iowa has played SEC teams before and done just fine. Okay. It's really like it's one way or the other. Either Iowa does really, really well against them, or they get absolutely shellacked. Very rarely is it a close game like what we saw. It was either Mississippi State or Kentucky that Iowa played to the wire. Not last year's bowl game. I think it was one or two before that. This game was an absolute embarrassment. I am so happy that the Brian Ferentz era is done and over with. I don't wish the guy uh, ill will or anything like that. I just don't want him as the offensive coordinator of the Iowa Hawkeyes football program. As I've said many, many times before, I think I've been fair with Brian Ferentz, but it's time for Iowa to find somebody else. Brian Ferentz had plenty. He had plenty of time to develop and to improve. And the reality is, he actually regressed. During the football game, I was, watching it, and it was in the third quarter, and I thought to myself, man, what a shame, especially when true freshman Marco Lainez got in there, made a few plays, which was a pleasant sight to see, and a downright pleasant sight to see. I thought to myself, what a shame it is that Iowa lost Joey Labus. I am positive that he's going to go somewhere else and have a lot of success. This is not a Peyton Manziel or, I think he's going to go elsewhere and he's going to have success. And quite frankly, I think Carson May, who transferred last year, is going to have success as well at Wyoming. And I was thinking to myself, holy crap, if you compare, and I highly suggest that you Iowa fans do the same, because I've already done it. If you go back and watch Iowa's performance against Kentucky last year in the bowl game, and then you watch Iowa's performance, you don't even need to do that. You can just look at the statistics for each game and compare each game. You can see the massive regression the Iowa Hawkeye offense has made as a whole. And furthermore, and this is why I was discussing Joey Labus, you can see just by the two performances. Now, granted, it was only one game for Joey Labus, and I understand that. Okay. But I don't think I don't think Deacon Hill had one performance that this entire year that was on the level of what Deacon Hill was able to, of what Joey Labus was able to do last year against an SEC caliber defense in a bowl game at the end of the season. And so it really makes me question the Iowa Hawkeye coaching staff on the offensive side of the football and whether they are really able to assess talent. Now, obviously, I'm being hyperbolic. Obviously, talent is fairly objective. When you see talent, you know exactly what it is. But I do question Iowa's ability, the current makeup of the coaching staff offensively, their ability to assess the talent that they have and come up with the best players to play on the field on Saturdays. You think about Caleb Brown, how for some reason Caleb Brown wasn't seeing any action all year long, and then all of a sudden he's Iowa's top receiver. How does that make any sense? I think about that guy, and I called it. I said that was going to happen. But just think about that for a moment, okay? How does it make any sense that a player is on a team, is being benched for a majority of the season, and it's the same season, okay? We're not talking different seasons with an off season and time in between to develop and practice and work on skill. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the same season. How can one guy go from being benched to being the top target on the offensive side of the football? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the Iowa Hawkeye football team was, and I knew this was going to happen, they were stubbornly making Caleb Brown earn it and sitting him and deferring to some of the other talent that was on the Iowa Hawkeye football team, when they knew from the moment he stepped on campus the type of talent that he was. You know, you look at Joey Labus, Iowa going to Deacon Hill over Joey Labus. And then Joey Labus drops his practice highlights, and you see this dude throwing dimes out there. Now, again, it was a highlight package, and so I don't want to get too carried away with that. But it does really make me question specifically Brian Ferentz kind of philosophy as an offensive coordinator and his ability to assess and gauge talent on a week-to-week basis regarding who should be receiving a bulk of the snaps on Saturdays. This game was abysmal. It was embarrassing. Iowa has now been shut out in 2 games in a row. They have laid an egg on the biggest of stages, 2 games in a row. What more? And it doesn't matter, because thank God Beth Gates made the decision and took the decision out of the media's hands, out of the fans' hands, and she just made a decision. And thank goodness she did, honestly. So it doesn't even matter. But just hypothetically speaking, what more evidence is needed at this point in time than what we have seen in the last 2 years, if not more, but specifically the last 2 years from Brian Ferentz coached teams on the offensive side of the football? Now, I will say, obviously, I'm looking forward to who the next OC is, but I am slightly concerned that the problem wasn't just Brian Ferentz, that the problem is Kirk Ferentz, or at least partially Kirk Ferentz. And I've talked about this before, but I can absolutely envision a situation where in Kirk Ferentz's entire evolution as a head football coach, we are coming to the last version of Kirk Ferentz, and he has basically found a way to revert back to what he's always been, which is a conservative-minded coach. And yes, he's won a lot of football games that way, obviously, and I give him credit for that. You know, there's a show that I really like. It's called Mad Men, and just stick with me here. But a main story, a major theme in the show Mad Men is the simple question: do people change, or do people just find a way to become what they already are, or what they really are? Personally, I would love to believe that people can change. And I do think, but I think that ultimately people don't change, and we just kind of get confused by the details. And, you know, the current version that we see from them, whether it's better or especially better or worse, but especially when it's better, we go, oh, well, see, that's evidence that they changed. No. Maybe the situation in the past was just really, really difficult, and maybe they were making poor choices, but this is really who they are, this good version, okay? I tend to believe that people find ways to be who they are. And now, I'm not trying to get philosophical here, okay? But I'm saying that to say, when it comes to Kirk Ferentz, that what we saw with the whole Kirk Ferentz 2.0, the 2.1, the 2.2, when, you know, it was immediately after Iowa got shellacked by Tennessee last time. when I believe Butch Jones was the head coach, that was not who Kirk Ferentz was. The Kirk, the KF 2.1, 2 point, that was not who Kirk Ferentz really was. And he was going out of his comfort zone. But what we see now is more of what Kirk Ferentz really is and how he wants to coach his football teams. So I am concerned. And boy, how quickly did that change? How quickly did Kirk go from that to where we're at now? And really, I think Brian Ferentz was the catalyst towards that happening. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Ken O'Keefe really retired because he was like, screw it, I'm done. I cannot put up with this consistent pull from Kirk Ferentz towards this conservative approach. Now, I'm not saying that it's bad to have a conservative approach when you coach a team like Iowa and to lean on the defense. It's just, you don't need to do it so much. There's such a thing as a happy in between, a happy medium. And there's nothing wrong with having an at least average offense. All right, guys, let's see. Deacon Hill, let's just get back to the game. I was not planning on going on that big of a tirade, but you guys know I can get worked up. 35-0 Tennessee Vols. It's really a shame, guys. Iowa, could have won 11 games for the fourth time in school history. I'll go back to the stats in a second. And I was really hoping that they would do it. And I was really hoping that Kirk Ferentz would be able to, because regardless of what I just said, I do like Kirk Ferentz. And I think he's been a resounding positive on the state, on the program. And just as a fan, I was tremendously hoping that Kirk Ferentz would have an 11-win season. But let's be honest, folks. Iowa is not an 11-win football team. They're not. And so them not winning 11 games is probably accurate. And to tell you the truth, to take it one step forward, one giant step forward, a lot of people would argue that they're not really a 10-win team either. And they would cite that Iowa had a historically wild team that 99% of the time would not see this type of success in the win-loss column or in the wins column in any other season for any other team, 99% of the time. All right, let's go back. 35-0, guys. What a shame. But, guys, this Iowa offense is just downright trash. And I should have known better that anytime Iowa plays just an above average defense, which Tennessee had, not elite, but it was decent, that they would not be able to score the football. And here we are. Deacon Hill had 2 turnovers. He had 3 turnovers. He had 2 interceptions and a fumble on the 2-yard line. I mean, Deacon Hill had one of the worst games at quarterback I've seen in a long, long, long time. Okay, I don't even think Spencer Petras had performances like that. To tell you the truth, at this point, I probably would take Spencer Petras over Deacon Hill. Hell, I may even take him over Cade McNamara. Honestly, guys, I mean, now, no, I probably wouldn't take him over Cade McNamara, and I really would. I really do want to see what Cade can do when healthy. But my gosh. Player stats. Deacon Hill, 7 of 18, 56 yards, 2 INTs, 1 fumble. Marco Lainez, 2 of 7, 4 yards, but 6 carries for 51 yards. He was probably the most productive player on the Iowa Hawkeye offense in his limited action. And I told you guys when Marco Lainez was recruited, and I've been telling you guys this for a while now, that Iowa has gotten more athletic quarterbacks. And there were a few people saying Marco Lainez is not a dual threat. He's not that fast. Wrong. You're wrong. He is. Okay. I mean, he's not, he's not Lamar Jackson, but he's 4.7, 4.6, 40-yard dash fast. Okay. Iowa could not run the football. They had nothing on the ground. I mean, it's not like they really tried, honestly. I mean, they only ran the ball 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, not counting Marco Lainez, 15, 17 times. So Caleb Brown, 3 receptions, 39 yards. Caleb Johnson, man, he definitely took a step back this year. It was a tough year for him not being able to stay healthy. And sometimes that does happen. Sometimes guys have a really productive first year. They get a little overconfident, and their second year is a step back. Once there's game tape and their tendencies are revealed. So, hopefully Caleb Johnson can figure it out going into next year, because he has a lot of talent. He's got a lot of physical tools that are really solid. Addison Ostranga, 2 receptions for 14 yards. Steven Stilianos, 1 for 4. Nico Rogani, 2 for 3. Just unbelievable. Torrey Taylor, excellent game, averaged 51.4 yards per kick. Thank goodness he finally won the Punter of the Year award in NCAA football. I mean, I thought Iowa did pretty good against Nico Imaleva. He had less than 200 yards passing, but Iowa got torched on the ground. Iowa really struggled with Tennessee's tempo, and they really struggled with the RPO of Nico and, this run pass option. They really struggled with that today. And I think, in fairness, Iowa hadn't really played anybody all year that had this type of natural talent, both on the ground and passing, in Nico Imaleva. But Iowa's offense played terrible, but Iowa's defense did not play as well in this game as they did last year against Kentucky. I wish Phil Parker had dialed up some more blitzes and really got after the true freshman Nico and forced him to make mistakes. But Iowa's defense played pretty base the entire game. So let's look at the team stats. I mean, Tennessee still had almost 400 yards of total offense. So again, Iowa's defense, this was not their best performance of the year by any mean. In fact, I would say that this was probably their worst performance, to tell you the truth. But, would it still have been enough if Iowa's offense was average? Yeah, it would have been a lot closer. It would have been way closer. I think Phil Parker had the wrong game plan coming into this game. He stayed base. and he really forced Phil Parker's strategy in this was, okay, we have a true freshman. Let's go base and let's make him kind of earn everything he gets with soft pressure. Let's make him be a decision maker back there rather than saying, screw that. Let's get after him. Let's pressure him. Let's make it uncomfortable. Usually the answer is somewhere in between, but you can do, either one more so than the other. And I would say today, Iowa stayed far more base than they did selling out to make Nico uncomfortable at all costs. Okay. That was not the case. They did not do that. And they gave up 232 yards rushing. Okay. Iowa's defensive line got moved all game long. Yards per play, 5.2. Tennessee had 25 first downs. So again, this was not Iowa's best defensive performance. Not at all. There's a good chance Iowa would have still lost this game, even if the offense played average. But Tennessee ran 74 plays. They had 25 first downs. They only had 3 penalties. They had 0 turnovers. Time of possession, 30 minutes. But it did help a lot that Iowa was, once they got down by 2 scorers, it really put Iowa in a totally different position that Iowa is not used to being in. And it put them in, this Iowa unit was still above average this year in takeaways, but it's not as good as we have seen in past Phil Parker coach defenses. But it's just, when you're Iowa and you get down 2 touchdowns and you have a defense that is a bend don't break defense, once the floodgate opens, it's completely open, and it becomes very hard to get the genie back in the bottle, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because it's just this constant pressure that eventually accumulates and breaks through. So anyways, guys, my final thoughts on the game are as follows. I was happy to see Marco Lainez and to see what he was capable of. I think, there's been a lot of positive reports about him, but we've heard that before. We've heard the positive reports before. Time will tell. I would say going into next year, Cade McNamara is definitely the front runner to be the starter. Deacon Hill not once made a legitimate case to be the starting quarterback for the Iowa Hawkeyes next year or any other time in the future. I feel I'm bummed that Iowa lost a quarterback like Joey Labus, especially when Brian Ferentz is out the door as well. And I wish that the Iowa coaching staff or Kirk Ferentz would have been able to say, listen, it didn't work with Brian Ferentz with you either, but we do have a new coach coming in, and we promise you'll get a fair look when that new OC comes in. But, at the same time, you're Joey Labus. Cade McNamara is going to be the starter. That's another year that you're sitting for sure, almost guaranteed, unless he gets injured. So I can see why. It was good to see him get some reps there. Good to see some of the younger guys out there. But the bottom line, guys, is that this game was an unmitigated disaster. Iowa got absolutely worked in this game. And to tell you the truth, in a lot of ways, this game was as bad as Iowa's loss to Tennessee when Butch Jones was the coach. And, that the one player, Parker, the running back Parker, on a kick return was going out of bounds, and he threw the ball backwards to one of his players, and Jonathan Parker threw the ball back to one of his players, and it was either a fumble recovery or a touch. It ended up being a touchdown for Tennessee, but this was just a bad performance. I am so happy that Iowa is moving off of Brian Ferentz. I think that this game is is pinnacle, classic. Uh, it is the epitome of why Brian Ferentz must go. Now, time will tell if part of the problem was also Brian Ferentz, or excuse me, also Kirk Ferentz. But what more can I say, guys? This game, there were not a ton of highlights. Looking forward to next year, yeah, Iowa in 2015 lost 45-28. At least they scored almost 30 points. How about that? There were not a ton of positives in this game. Looking forward to next year. We'll see who decides to transfer. I think that there will be a few, at least one or two guys on the offense side of the football that decide to transfer that are a surprise. It won't be a surprise for me because I fully understand the transfer portal. And, let's be honest, guys, if you are an offensive player on the Iowa Hawkeye team, even if you're a starter, it's kind of a dark prognostication, and you have no confidence that it will get any better. So I wouldn't be surprised if anybody, if one or two guys leave. At this point in time, Iowa will have a very talented roster coming back for next year on both sides of the football. At this point in time, Iowa has everybody in their running back room set to return. Caleb Brown will be a year older. Some of the other wide receivers will be a year older in the room. Luke Lachey is returning. We'll see what happens with Eric All. I haven't heard a ton about that situation, but either way, Addison Ostrenga received a ton of reps this year. So it's good, but Iowa needs to get this offensive coordinator hire right. And I hope Kirk Ferentz does, guys. You guys have heard me say it time and time again that Kirk Ferentz really has a chance to finish his career on a really high note if he can get this right. But it's easier said than done. So we'll see. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. That's pretty much it. Like I said, yeah, it was 2015 that Iowa. I think that this one was actually worse than that performance. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Not a ton of positives here. I do want to thank you guys for a great season, for all your support. You guys are the best fans in the world. The channel continues to grow, and it's because of you guys. And I'm glad to have you guys covered every step of the way. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow and facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. If you guys want to donate, you guys absolutely can. Links in the description. Go Hawks.